Welcome to Called to Homeschool with your host, Meg Thomas. I am a mother of 7 with 5 homeschool graduates. Each week, we'll talk about real-life homeschool, mindset shifts, and practical tools you can use in your home. Because homeschooling isn't just about school, it's about restoring the family. Hello, welcome back to Called to Homeschool. Excited to be diving in here. How is your homeschool year going? Are you wrapping things up? Still going strong, whatever you need to be doing. I'm still going strong. We're having a good time over here. So whatever you need to be doing, what works best for your family, please do it. I'm answering a great question today. I thought this was a really fun, interesting question. And this comes from Carissa in the US. And I love this. It's the title of this episode of How Little Can You Homeschool and Still Be Successful? Maybe you've wondered that too. So she says she has a 4 and a 9-year-old, and she's tried different strategies from heavy workbooks to student-led learning. My 9-year-old is slow processor. I would love to know how little you can do in homeschooling and still be successful. Does the amount change in elementary school versus middle school versus high school? Okay, this is so fun. Let's dive in. So first of all, the amount of time does change as a child grows. What a 2-year-old is capable is very different than a 12-year-old to a 22-year-old, right? And so I'll go through a little bit at the end of some ideas for structure time. As anybody grows, they develop a longer attention span. They're able to do more rigorous work, right? So as the child grows, you do want to they are capable of doing a little bit more, just like around your house, right? That a little kid maybe is just in the kitchen with you mixing, and eventually they can start baking by themselves, and then they can bake and put it in the oven, and they can get out of the oven, and then eventually they can do all the dishes, right? So like you're just slowly adding on to it until you get a really good right amount for your kid. So, and also this question I thought was great for so many reasons, but I've also talked to a lot of teachers and asking, like, school days are really long. Why are homeschool days so short? And what a lot of teachers say that they are lucky if they can get 15 minutes of their class. So a lot of classes, I know here in Utah, like junior high and high school, they're just 4 classes that are a little bit longer. And these teachers are saying they're lucky to get 15 minutes of structured learning done in their classroom. So with 4 classes, right, that is an hour, and 1 hour of a day for high schoolers of actual structured learning. And that is with a class of 20 to 30 kids. And it goes so much quicker when it is just your kids, or if you just have one kid you're teaching a subject to. So it is a lot less than public school, definitely private school, but they actually are still getting a really an amazing education. And I want to kind of dive into this of some other things that we can be teaching our kids so that it's not just all structured learning, but like we do want them to be good at reading and math, but there's so much more to life. And so I'm going to remind you about the Thomas Jefferson education, and there's 4 stages. And this, I think, is a really good thing to just keep in mind, that because we get really hung up of like, they got to read and they got to do this stuff. And we just try to cram all of these things that they're going to get. But when we focus on building a really strong foundation, homeschool gets to be really fun. It gets to be fun for everybody. So let's dive in. So stage 1 is called the core phase. And this is around ages 0 to 8. And the focus here is character, habits, and family culture. And when you simplify it into that of like helping my kid develop amazing habits, I love the quote from Charlotte Mason: "The mother who takes pains to endow her children with good habits secures for herself smooth and easy days, while she who lets their habits take care of themselves has a weary life of endless friction with the children." I cannot say this enough of teaching your children amazing habits. You can use Happy Habits, download it on my website, coachmegthomas.com, but really helping with that family culture, doing great habits, because this is going to set the stage for everything else. And even if your children are a little bit older and you're just starting to homeschool, you may even want to come back to this stage because they're going to pick it up fairly quickly, so you don't have to live here very long, right? But really do focusing on this. So what it looks like, reading aloud to your kids, right? Little kids love to be read aloud to. They're so easy to do that with. Chores, having your kids do chores. By 8, a lot of my kids are doing their own laundry. They're helping with the bathrooms. They're cleaning the house. They're doing yard work, right? Of like, this is our family culture. These are things that we do, learning how to really work. It looks like a lot of playing. So much learning is happening through playing a lot of games, just playing and having fun, being together. This phase is not about academics. It is about becoming. And it's interesting when I talk to a lot of other veteran homeschool moms, some of them actually say that they don't even start teaching reading, writing, math, those things until our kid is 8. And you can do what works best for your family. There are different thoughts with that, like Finland waits a little bit longer. I think it's Germany waits, maybe not that old. Montessori, a bunch of different places wait till a child's a little bit older to actually develop these amazing phases instead of fire hosing them that they can do multiplication really young, but something goes wrong and they completely have a meltdown or they can't pick up after themselves, right? So really focusing on that stage. And that's what she said her kids were 4 and 9. So making sure that especially her 4-year-old is still in the thick of this phase, and 9-year-old, making sure that 9-year-old has these skills. And then we go into stage 2, which is the love of learning, and it's ages 8 to 12. And I think the stage is so fun. This is because they're so curious and their excitement. And so there's a lot of interest-led learning. All of a sudden it's like, oh my goodness, it's springtime and butterflies are out. Like, let's get a book on butterflies or watch a video on butterflies or go to a museum on butterflies. And then they're like, oh my goodness, now this is so cool. My little guy, he was telling me for summer, we actually don't really do history in the summertime. We just do the basics, but he already told me, he's like, I got to know about Egypt. I need to know about Egypt this summer. We have to learn about Egypt. And I was like, fantastic. Let's do it. Right. So a lot of interest-led learning. So this is great books. Charlotte Mason calls them living books, but really great, amazing books. Doing projects, creating things. That's my son wants to build our own pyramids. I don't know what we're using to build them yet, but it'll be exciting. Exploration, following interest. You're not forcing learning, you are inviting it. And so a common mistake in this phase is adding too much structure too soon when they're not ready. And you'll just kind of watch your kid, and each child's kid is independent, and we're not factory lining our children just like a public education is, but we're giving them individualized education. So if they're ready for a little bit more at a younger age, great. And if they're not, great, because you're going at their speed. The next stage is the scholar phase, and this is around ages 12 to 16, and this is discipline, skills, and deep work. So this looks like more structured academics, independent work, and increased responsibility. This is where the rigor comes, but only when they're ready. And you cannot force this early just because you want it to, but when it comes, it works beautifully. And I've seen this with all of my big kids. So now my 6th kid is in this phase, and it's awesome to see because he's ready for the more structured academics. And it was funny because sometimes I'll even be like, that seems a little intense or a little too much. And he's like, no, I've got this. And I've really got to know about physics and chemistry, so I need to learn both of them, or just different things that he is interested in. And like, I want to get better on my math and I want to do this. And so just really watching them come alive of like, I'm ready for this. And then the 4th phase is the depth phase. And this is 16 plus. And this is that purpose of mastery and direction. And this looks like internships, mentorships, specialized studies. And this is when a lot of my kids start college. And it's interesting because if you would just look at what I do with them when they're young, you're like, how are Meg's kids doing college at 16, 15 up? And it's because I go nice and slow. We build like how to work hard, how to do these things, how to manage when things don't go your way or things are difficult. We explore, we have a lot of fun, we do all those creativity things, and then we get a little bit more structured. And so then when they get to this phase, they're just ready to go, and it's amazing. And so that's when they really start taking ownership of their education and like, I know what I want. And so I love to remind those phases just because it really helps with like how long to do. But to me, it's more of like, what is the best use of time during those phases of your ages of your children? Now, with that being said, I came up with this a long time ago. I just came up with these numbers. I know a lot of other people have numbers around the same, but of like ideas of how long the structured learning could be. And so if you are like, with little kids, I do want to sing the alphabet and teach them how to read and what are numbers and how to hold a pencil. So here are some loose ideas for how long things could be. So kindergarten and below. 0 minutes to 30 minutes. And I used to time one of my sons when I was doing his little kid stuff because people were always curious, like, how long? And sometimes it'd be 5 minutes. But like, it's not 5 minutes. We do this school and then it's like, okay, goodbye. Mommy's not going to see you anymore today. But it's like 5 minutes, but then he's right there by me cooking, and he's right there by me when we're doing the chickens, and he's right there by me when we're grocery shopping. He's right there by me with dad, or right by dad when he's doing something, right? And so he's gleaning so much. So maybe we only spent 5 minutes of structured learning, but then we went and played games, and then we went into the park, and then we were on a nature walk, right? And so the actual structured learning can be so quick. But No more than 30 minutes tops. If your kid is this young and they're having a meltdown, quit doing so much school. Like, go simpler. Elementary, and that's a big range, but I have 30 to 60 minutes, maybe even a little bit more for those older grades. And once again, going at their pace, going at their speed, lots of breaks as needed. It's hard for adults to just sit there and power through, and yet we ask this of children all the time, and I don't think it's fair, but to break it up for them. So however they need that done. Junior high gets a little bit more involved, right? And these kind of go a little bit along with the phases of these grades, right? So you can adjust with that. But junior high is the 1 to 2 hours of like, we're ready for a little bit more each day. And I only do school 4 days a week, and it works beautifully for me. Then high school, 2 to 4 hours. And even with these numbers, it doesn't need to look like that. And it doesn't need to be sitting all day and just reading a book. A part of your school can be, like I said, working next to mom or next to dad. So much learning is happening by working on your house, redoing a room, remodeling, building a house, whatever that is for you guys, going to a museum, just taking a walk and letting them ask all their questions, serving somebody, gardening, and so much more. So I also have some other podcast episodes for anybody about thinking of short lessons or how long or how short could I be to be successful. And I think it is called The Power of Short Lessons that you really could go benefit from. Go and listen to those just to help you see that longer is not always better. Lots of times short and sweet lessons, they actually can absorb it and process it and think about it, and then they can get curious and want to know more. So bottom line, there is no magic number of how little or long your school should be. You get to decide and be in tune with God and the Spirit of what is the best amount for each child. And remember, we don't have to be on a conveyor belt. We get to go at their pace, their speed, and how much school is best for them in their learning environment. I do want to encourage you with this, if we're not doing structured learning for hours a day, to not just then turn on screens or to just let them check out with basically screens, right? Or just things that I call them garbage type things, right? Where they're becoming blobs, but to get outside, to get curious, to build something, to create something, to do something, just being with you either also and having amazing habits. And so you're showing them how to have this amazing life and helping them to just really love learning and to continue that throughout their life. All right, friends, I hope this episode helped, and I hope you have an amazing week, and I will talk to you next time. Thanks so much for listening to Call to Homeschool. If today's episode was helpful, the best way you can support the show is by leaving a rating or review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It helps more homeschool moms find this work, and I appreciate it so much.